Joining me now is Greg Marquis in St. John, New Brunswick. He's a professor of Canadian and criminal justice history at the University of New Brunswick. He's also writing a book about the Oland family and has been following the trial since the start. We reached him at the courthouse where the verdict has just been announced. So, Greg, what is your reaction to this verdict?
I wasn't prepared for this. I'm shocked. I had not intellectually prepared myself for this verdict, and I'm the guy writing a book on the case.
Why is that?
Well, I'm a layperson, not a law prof, but I attended the preliminary inquiry and most of the trial, and it was largely a circumstantial case, and it seemed that the Crown had a lot of weaknesses, and the defense was strong. There was a lot of reasonable doubt and that type of thing, and I think most people in this community will be shocked that just the way the evidence was tested in court. So, I'm still trying to process. It's just been within the hour, right? So I think that's going to be the general reaction in St. John and in New Brunswick.
Tell me a little bit about that in terms of the weaknesses in the Crown's case and where the holes were, in your opinion.
Well, I mean, it's not just my opinion. I mean, there seemed to be alibi evidence for the defendant in terms of when he was back to his area with his wife, and there were noises heard in the building where the murder took place that could have been the murder taking place. There was no murder weapon. There was no trace or blood evidence or electronic evidence other than some cell phone evidence. There was some very faint staining on a jacket that the defendant owned, and there was some DNA within those stains that matched the victim, but there was no evidence entered as to how the blood got there. No one could say. No weapon found. The motive was weak on many levels. The financial motive that the Crown played up was, many people thought that was a bit weak. And on the other hand, the judge did tell the jury to think about the totality of the evidence. So maybe enough little pieces added up. But to get 12 people to agree on this is very everyone's shocked here, and I guess there'll be other opinions that will be forthcoming.
And certainly the Oland family, they seem to be shocked. Can you tell us? You were in the courtroom.
Yeah, there was one person in particular having difficulty. One of the female members of the family. I wasn't really sure. It didn't seem to be his mother, who you feel for, or his wife. But there are other family members there too. I was so busy watching the judge and the jurors and things like that. I don't have too many sets of eyes. So, but that was the first time I've really seen emotion in the court, right? It was the odd thing about the case too. I haven't sat in on I've never sat in on a jury trial before or a murder case, but there is often very little emotion in the court. Sometimes you forget that you were in a murder case, prosecution or trial. But certainly going to be the talk. It's been the talk of New Year's parties now for the last 3 years, and this is going to propel, the discussion even more. Whether or not there's going to be an appeal, I think in theory people have 30 days to file for an appeal, but you have to have grounds for an appeal, and that's going to be interesting. The sentencing hearing will be in February. The jury did recommend a minimum of 10 years, which is the softest, parole ineligibility period. They didn't have to come up with any recommendations, so at least all 12 jurors were unanimous on that. But the judge will take that under advisement and come back here in early February, and there will be a sentencing hearing. Mr. Oland went directly into custody as soon as the verdict was announced, but then he was brought back when the jury came back for that sentencing hearing, and he understandably looked quite forlorn.
You say you're writing a book about the Oland family, just for national.
Not the family, about this case.
Oh, about this case. All right.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the family, their prominence in New Brunswick.
They're prominent. They're not to the same level of the Irvings or the McCains, two other prominent New Brunswick business families, but they're a well-known family. They're connected with Moosehead Brewery, one of the last major independent Canadian breweries. Now, the victim was not directly connected. He had been in the early 80s and had been involved as a shareholder, but he and his father kind of weeded him out from managing Moosehead, and that kind of factors into some of the family dynamics. His brother Derek became the CEO, and so the son was not directly involved with Moosehead. He was a stockbroker with CIBC Wood Gundy, but they're from the Oland clan. They're a very well regarded family, kind of low profile. Many of them live in Rothsay, which is kind of an upper class area outside of St. John. Involved with charity. sailing, that type of thing. And they're not as controversial as, say, the Irvings or the McCains. And it's a fairly well-regarded family, and definitely part of the business elite within New Brunswick. And the victim was worth $35 or $36 million when he was killed. So, and, you know, one of the better-known businessmen around St. John, if not New Brunswick.
So in your, in talking to people about this case, you're writing a book about this case. You say that you're shocked by this decision. Is that the general feeling that you think New Brunswickers have?
I think it will be. I think it will be. That doesn't mean that people didn't think that the person was guilty. There's a lot of scuttlebutt and gossip because, again, you have to make that distinction. Someone has to be found guilty according to law, beyond a reasonable doubt. And what really the legal issues that is at play is, did the Crown prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that this person was guilty at the charge at hand? That is not necessarily the same thing as, did he do it? Right? I didn't go around asking people because I would need another life. People came up to me, and I only found one person in 2 or 3 years who came up to me and said, he's going to be convicted. Right? But this is kind of a common sense sort of word on the street. These are not people necessarily attending the trial. So, but again, lawyer firm, different lawyers I talked to informally, I think they're going to be shocked.
Greg, interesting to speak to you about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Greg Marquis in St. John, New Brunswick.